I want to start this off by saying I do not condone what happened to Charlie Kirk, and I don't think it's any kind of solution to the violent circumstances we find ourselves in this country. If anything, it exemplifies and worsens those conditions. That being said, Charlie Kirk would have no reverence, no sobriety, no clarity about my death or yours. Charlie Kirk was a violent, angry, vindictive tool for the 1%, and we shouldn't forget that just because he died. In my honest view, if there's anything owed to someone after they're dead, it's not reverence. We should save that for people who, I don't know, deserve it maybe. What Charlie Kirk deserves is honesty. And I guess none of Charlie Kirk's personal friends or political allies are willing to give him that, so it's up to me. Charlie Kirk deserves honesty. Honesty about who he was and the legacy that he leaves behind. So if you don't know, Charlie Kirk, founder and spokesperson for Turning Point USA, was killed on September 10th at a campus event he held at Utah Valley University near Provo, Utah. He was shot by a rooftop sniper from over 200 yards away. About an hour after Charlie Kirk was shot, an unrelated school shooter at Evergreen High School in Evergreen, Colorado, injured 2 students before fatally shooting himself at just 16 years old. The shooter was quietly radicalized online by a far-right white supremacist grooming operation, and he's just one of many examples. But the very fact that 2 school shootings took place at the same time, less than 500 miles from each other in neighboring states, makes America's real crisis abundantly clear. There is a violence problem and there's a gun problem. And Charlie Kirk sought to make both of these issues worse through his advocacy and his fundraising and his personal advising of the president. I can only assume that Charlie Kirk believed that he would always be safe from his own policies. This is exactly why he predominantly went to college campuses in the first place. He felt safe there, and he exploited that safety and exploited the students that he engaged with because he knew he could trample over them rhetorically. He knew his ideas would be more digestible to an audience that hasn't matured yet because they're stupid ideas, and he assumed the cops on campus would keep him safe from the violent rhetoric he was espousing or anyone's reaction to it. And he used the safety he was granted to build a massive platform dehumanizing black people, immigrants, trans people, to advocate for death regularly here and abroad, and probably most significantly defended gun rights even at the cost of people's lives.
I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal.
This guy said that abortion is worse than the Holocaust.
So you're comparing abortion to the Holocaust?
Absolutely I am. In fact, it's worse. It's worse.
It's really not. I don't
It's
think it is.
45 million babies. It's nearly 8 times worse than the Holocaust. What's the moral difference between a small baby in the womb and a grown Jew who was killed at Auschwitz? What's the moral difference?
He was also a passionate anti-vaxxer, spreading the same conspiracies that caused a lone gunman to murder a cop after firing 300 rounds at the CDC headquarters in Atlanta in May of this year, all because he thought the COVID vaccine was killing him.
Over under. How long until Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are no more? Over under, Blake.
Like until they're dead? I could see their suicide pact taking effect.
No, not that
with
one.
it.
Not when the mRNA gene altering shot makes Travis Kelce drop in the middle of practice.
That one's way more fun.
I'm talking about when will they no longer be together.
And these are similar delusions to the shooter that killed Melissa Hortman and her husband, who has apparently in jail claimed to have done COVID investigations on corpses in funeral homes. But guys, he's a Christian, so he's all about love and peace, of course. He only said that Black Lives Matter stood for burn, loot, and murder.
Remember what BLM stands for. Burn, loot, and murder.
Advocated to pardon the man who killed George Floyd.
You were trying to get the officer who murdered George Floyd pardoned, and I just want to know what your reasoning was about that.
Well, George Floyd didn't die because of the police officer. He died largely because of a drug overdose.
But he had his knee on his neck. We all saw the video.
But the knee on the neck is actually an approved police technique that police departments taught Derek Chauvin to use.
And called Palestinians enduring famine and genocide by Israel stupid Muslims.
Hey, if you as a gay person would go to Gaza, they'd throw you off of tall buildings, right? Now they don't have any tall buildings left, so I don't...
When you mess with the bull, you get the horns.
Is that too soon? I'm sorry. Maybe you shouldn't kill Jews, stupid Muslims.
All, of course, while imploring his listeners to arm themselves.
There's not much you can do, folks. You have a government that hates you. You have a traitor as the president. Buy weapons. I keep on saying that. buy weapons, buy ammo. If you go into a public place, bring a gun with you.
What Charlie Kirk's murder has solidified in my mind is that people cannot recognize violence when they hear it. I guess only when they see it right in front of them sometimes. For the people that Charlie Kirk is talking about, what he advocates for, what he helps pass into law, aren't just a debate, a conversation. They aren't just ideas. They are violence. Police occupation, ICE raids, even anti-abortion laws are incredibly violent and destroy lives in this country regularly. So the idea that Charlie Kirk was non-violent, it couldn't be further from the truth. Now, the facts of Charlie Kirk's murder are incredibly murky as I'm recording this and have been disastrously covered by the mainstream media. For example, Wall Street Journal published a phony leak from Steven Crowder, but also the shooter had apparently engraved bullets. I don't know why they keep saying engraved. I've never seen an engraved bullet before that wasn't a fake bullet on Etsy or at the gas station. But what was supposedly inscribed onto the bullets were extremely online references that the mainstream media is completely unequipped to draw conclusions about or even analyze, really. It's been bad.
But on the bullet casings, I don't remember there being a transgender one on there. I remember him saying, there was one that said, if you can read this, you're gay. It was referencing internet memes. But on what you just said there about investigating
there is, hold on a second, Caitlin, there is a transgender
if there is funding,
one. Hold on, Caitlin, there is a transgender. There's a reference to, do you see my bulge, which is, I'm told, is an online meme for transgenderism.
I don't know why there's no pictures of these bullets. I kind of don't believe that they're real yet. And that's because the FBI has done a horrible job with this investigation. They straight up could not find him. They arrested 4 guys that weren't even the shooter and were, I think, about to give up before he turned himself in after talking to his dad and his Mormon bishop. And of course, the FBI has to congratulate themselves for a job well done, as always.
When the public, who had a right to demand such an expeditious solving of an investigation, the FBI answered that call diligently, critically important to our nation, and we delivered. And I'm proud to be their leader, and I'm proud to be the director of the FBI.
They published a picture of the rifle used in the murder, which is what helped the shooter get caught, but the story about the rifle itself seems kind of inconsistent. According to the FBI, it was wrapped in a towel and stashed away in some woods, but the pictures they released were a picture of the rifle in a box. So was it in a box in a towel? Is that an evidence box? Where did the box come from? But not to mention, the FBI in general has just been incredibly incompetent. Kash Patel tweeted that they got the guy before they even got him. I think just in handling this one case, this FBI has obliterated its credibility. Like, across the political spectrum, I don't think anybody believes the FBI right now. The texts they recently published seem incredibly suspect and at the very least completely out of context. So they also tell us basically nothing. I want to take a minute to talk about just the general hypocrisy I've seen with the outrage regarding Charlie Kirk's murder and people celebrating it. It seems like the common public figure response from politicians and a lot of mainstream journalists is that political violence is never okay, that it's beyond the pale, that this isn't America. This isn't how we do things. And I'm sorry, but yes, it is. America's history is incredibly bloody, incredibly violent, but history isn't talked about honestly in this country. It's mythologized, and American exceptionalism is behind every, mainstream figure, it feels like. They can't see past it. There have been a lot of comparisons exclusively from right-wingers of Charlie Kirk's assassination to the assassinations of MLK and JFK. So, I mean, they're picking the examples for me. That's just in the same decade. And it's not like it was just, one little period here. It's just forever. It's always. America is always and has always been like this. JFK wasn't even the first president to get his head blown off. MLK wasn't even the only civil rights leader assassinated in the 60s. In 1965, Malcolm X is assassinated. In 1968, MLK is assassinated. In 1969, Fred Hampton is assassinated. In 1984, the Philadelphia Police Department bombed an entire neighborhood because one black liberation group was in a building. That's all political violence. That's all America's history. Turning points in America's history, no pun intended. But even since Charlie Kirk's murder, there has been more political violence that goes completely dismissed and untalked about because everyone's too busy mourning the dead racist. There were 2 lynchings that happened in Mississippi just a few days ago. 2 homeless encampments in Minneapolis were shot up a day after Fox News host Brian Kilmeade called for the state to murder the homeless.
Either you take the resources that we're going to give you or you decide that you got to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill him.
He didn't get fired, though. That only happens if you make fun of Charlie Kirk. There are school shootings regularly in this country, and no action is ever taken. There's not this outrage or demand for justice. Alex Jones can lie and say that the kids are crisis actors. Hypocrisy is fundamental to American conservatism and American fascism. It's fundamental to get their beliefs across, and they weaponize it every instance they can. The reaction from the right in general has been a mixed bag. There's, of course, a lot of fury and rage, mostly just lying, though, but also grifting. Every right-winger mentioning Kirk in the aftermath of his death is specifically doing it to advance their own agenda, and you can hear it almost every time. Everyone wants to paint themselves as his best friend who knew him the best and is carrying on his legacy. Even Donald Trump said he was loved by all, especially me. Candace Owens is trying to imply that Israel assassinated Charlie Kirk, which is so absurd it's almost funny. Kirk was the biggest primo Zionist, hardcore Christian nationalist Zionist. He was going to the #1 place where Israel is the least popular, college campuses, and trying to redeem the reputation of a genocidal apartheid state.
I can't see a single instance of Israel going out of its way to kill civilians.
You don't see it in a single instance of what?
Israel going out of its way to kill civilians. I see Israel going out of its way.
So you don't believe what they've done is genocide?
No, of course not.
Just because he had Tucker Carlson on at one of his conventions to talk and grow the big tent of the right doesn't mean anything. Israel wouldn't kill him for that. He was super fucking useful for them. Candace is just in denial and anti-Semitic. But in a way, most of the right is in denial about Kirk's murder. They are absolutely desperate to make this seem like a radical leftist action or a Democratic Party assassination, which is not a thing. They're clearly excited to use Kirk's death as a way to enforce more violence on their political enemies, which is a lot of what Kirk was about at the end of the day. Violence, revenge, and lying. Right-wingers have taken to doxing, harassing, trying to get people fired from their jobs and ruining their lives just for making jokes or being honest about Kirk's death. No GoFundMes for you, though. That's only when you call a baby a slur. But unfortunately for a lot of right-wingers, the reality of who this shooter was seems a lot scarier for them than they're going to be willing to admit. This is still speculation, but from what I've seen, it seems like Kirk's shooter is not some radicalized anti-fascist. He was an apolitical Mormon electrician that wasn't even registered to vote. This isn't someone on the radar of the right wing at all. There are no piercings or blue hair or pronouns to indicate their team, and the boundaries of where those teams are don't seem to be as rigid as right wingers would have you believe. All that to say, a lot of people in this country who aren't even political at all do not like Republicans. And this is their worst nightmare. They might be quick to use this moment to try to crush as many leftists as they can to make Antifa a terrorist organization, but that won't make them any safer if it's apolitical centrists doing the violence. Either out of nihilism, desperation, hate, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. The access to guns is the bloody tip of the iceberg, but everyone's material conditions, with a slim 1% exception, are degrading in this country and have for the last 5-10 years. And the future is looking increasingly bleak, not just to anti-fascist, radical, transgender leftists, but to all working class people almost across the board. And it goes without saying that executing someone in the middle of a college campus is not going to change any of that. But conservatives were so quick to look at the target of this killing and assume that only a radicalized political fringe would do something like this, when America is not ideologically binary. It's a spectrum usually densely clouded by propaganda and misinformation. And it's clear it's not just a radical fringe of people that are unbothered by the death of Charlie Kirk. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to be fabricating this outrage and trying to force corporations to create consequences for people making fun of their favorite YouTuber. But this reaction does signal how desperate conservatives are to maintain control over a country that is broadly rejecting their political dogma and violent advocacy, whether they want to realize it or not. Like, the hypocrisy is just obvious. They don't want you to make jokes or be honest about who this fucker was, so they'll threaten to ruin your life or kill you because they believe in free speech. And this very much is the fake free speech that Charlie Kirk believed in too. They get to make jokes about the death of people they hate all the time. Like, I saw George Droid jokes on TikTok just last week. Death is not some sacred thing in this country. I mean, just a few months ago on Trump's personal account, he posted an aerial video of a religious gathering of Yemeni civilians being drone struck. Innocent, nameless people that we're just supposed to assume deserve to die. Trump just did that same exact thing again in Venezuela twice twice and posted it on his fucking Twitter account. Those people are dead too. We have no evidence to support that they were anything other than fishermen, and even if they were drug traffickers, that's not licensed to kill. But when it's one of theirs, it's different. To them, the violence suddenly becomes real, and life suddenly becomes precious. Death is unacceptable for one of their own, but in reality, they love death. It is their absolute solution to their political grievances. Drugs, kill. Homeless, kill. Transgender, kill.
Just kill them.
To me, everything about being a leftist is fundamentally to mitigate death and suffering, to keep people from feeling like they have no other option than violence or violent ideology. But I am not going to waste my time chastising people who couldn't care less about Charlie Kirk being killed, especially when they're already being targeted for their identity or their speech by the government and right-wing radicals like Charlie Kirk himself, whose ideology is inseparable from murderous intent. The right, and in particular their owners, the 1%, want to manipulate people with religious psychosis, white nationalist martyrdom, and the pre-existing permission structures weaponized against marginalized people already. They want to foster violence horizontally among the working class, rather than risking those same people look up at them, capital owners, and realizing who really is ruining this country. The biggest threat to those capital owners are leftists. The biggest threat to their heterodoxy that they are rabid to enforce on people are trans people. And the biggest threat to their white Christian nationalist ethno-state are black and brown people, immigrants, and Muslims. I'm gonna close out this video with the following. Charlie Kirk would not mourn my death. If anything, if I died, he'd probably make fun of it. And he wouldn't mourn you. He only mourned people that were convenient for him to mourn, convenient for him to acknowledge as human. No one killed in Gaza, no one killed by the police, no one killed by right-wing extremism. And if anything, the same fake outrage that Charlie Kirk selectively applied to white victims of crime he deemed politically convenient, that is the same exact kind of phony, manufactured outrage that his own death has dredged up among conservatives in this country and around the world. And once they're through manipulating his death into a politically advantageous talking point or policy, they'll discard him, just like every other victim of a violent crime that they prop up. I'm leaving some links below to donate to the PCRF and a link to track the Global Samud Flotilla, an aid convoy of over 50 vessels trying to break Israel's illegal blockade of Gaza and bring aid to the Palestinians enduring genocide. Israel has already bombed the flotilla twice in the few recent weeks, and barely anyone has mentioned it. So please keep track of them like the rest of us are. I really truly want the violence all over the world to stop, but that doesn't necessitate empathy or grief for the ones that not only perpetuate that violence, but profit and benefit from it happening. You do not owe Charlie Kirk sympathy, sanctity, or grief. And the people twisting his memory to be more favorable to their agenda or more digestible to the uninformed are the ones truly doing a disservice to his memory or soul or whatever you believe in. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to take care of each other and check in on people that matter to you. I'll be back with a video that isn't as fucked up.